Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Well, looks like I actually started on time. This might be a first. It's been a while actually since I did a live stream, but I'm going to try to get back into it. I don't know if it will be on any kind of consistent schedule like I've been hoping to, but I'm going to try to at least do one once a month for starters and just see how it goes from there. But yeah, so today I'm going to be showing you some secondhand books that I got recently and just cleaning them up a little bit before I add them to my bookshelf. And but before I do that, I thought I'd just give you a life update, talk about books I've been reading recently, and if you have any comments, questions you'd like to raise, let me know. I mean, this is going to be super informal, so anything goes. And also, if you are reading something, be sure to share in the chat what you're reading, and we can talk about that too. So yeah, the thing I've been really, well, first of all, I've been reading a lot of books lately. Like, I think I have 10 books on my to-read list, or not to my to-read list, on my currently reading list. And of those books, I might be focusing on 2 or 3 at a time, so I've kind of overcommitted myself. First one here, though, is the Oxford Book of Japanese Short Stories, which I've talked about 1 or 2 times already. And this one I have not been reading in order or anything. It's for a class that I'm taking, a class about Japanese literature. So we've been just kind of popcorning all over the book here. The last one we read was this one called Separate Ways by Higuchi Ichiyo. This is from the late 1800s, very sadly short-lived author, female author. And this is a book that had a lot of history packed in such a very short story. I think it's only like 8-10 pages. And it's about class system. It's about, I guess, making decisions in life, what really matters to you, and also the effects of your class upon those decisions that you make. And I'm not going to give it away. It is such a short story that if I talk too much about it, it's almost like telling you the story. But yes, I really liked this one. I've really enjoyed most of the stories we've been reading from this. But Separate Ways was particularly poignant, had a very sad ending, and was very thought-provoking. It definitely makes me grateful to live in a time when women have more choices. And, well, not just women, everybody, I think, has more opportunities and the chance for upward mobility that just wasn't so much something they could do in the 1800s in most countries. So yeah, I'm liking this book a lot. And I just love the short story form, honestly. I watched a recent video by Marianne Guevara, and she was talking about Flannery O'Connor's short stories, and I immediately thought I need to get back and read that book too, because I have the complete Flannery O'Connor. And it always amazes me how she crafts a short story. It's just, in a way it's so simple, and yet the things she focuses on and the characters she paints in such choice words is just really remarkable. So I think I will be, well, I'd like to read more short stories this year. We'll see. We'll see if I stick to that or not. Let's see here. I'm just going to see if I can pull up the video on my phone. Okay. So other things I've been reading. I started reading The Chronicles of Narnia, which I showed in a previous video. I read The Magician's Nephew already. I thought I was going to read it in a day, but I actually took a couple of days and really tried to dig deeply into it. And now I'm reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and really enjoying this as well. Probably the most enjoyable reading of this I've had. I can see why this book may appeal to more people, because it just starts out very down to earth, very full of dialogue, very fast paced. So, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm going to try to do a blog post for each of these and probably a video when I'm done with the series. Let's go to this book. So, for those who just joined, I'm just showing books that I've been reading. Let me know in the chat what you're reading and what's going on with you guys. Like I said at the beginning, I haven't done a live stream in a long time, so I'm gonna try to get back into it on a more regular basis. This isn't usually the day or the time I would do it, but it just was a good time for me to do it this week. This is Holy Week, so I have Friday off of work, and I'm going to celebrate Easter with my parents on Sunday, so I'm really looking forward to that. Otherwise, it's been a very, very quiet spring for me, and I guess that's just the nature of pandemic spring, but it just feels a little, it's a little off, right? Let's see. Paul asks, is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe a novel for children or a novel with children in it? So I think that's actually a really good question. I mean, I think that in my perspective, it's both, because the way that he writes this, I mean, I remember reading it as a child. It's not like he dumps so much information on you that you'd get tired or overwhelmed. I do think it's written for a child's attention span, but the writing is so clever and so tight and just very, again, he's also an author who uses just the right words at the right time, and because of that, I think it ages very well for an adult. So I don't notice it as being a child's book as much. But I do think that the level of detail is geared more towards children. The Magician's Nephew, sorry, I'm getting back my train of thought. The Magician's Nephew is like my favorite, well, not my favorite, my second favorite novel in the series. So this time when I read it, I tried to really pull apart why I liked it so much. So as I mentioned, you can view my review on the blog, but I'll just pull out a few thoughts on it right now. I really enjoyed how in The Magician's Nephew the characters were very complementary. So you've got two young protagonists, a girl and a boy. The boy's name is Diggory, the girl's name is Polly, and then they've got like these mirror counterparts in the older characters. Diggory's uncle, the amateur magician, and Queen Jadis, the queen of Charn, this other magical world. Basically, I found a lot of similarities, but also contrasts between those four characters, which I think is really nice to have in your protagonists. And he also gets into some really deep philosophical ideas when he sets up these dilemmas, these moral dilemmas for his characters to have to face and make choices on. So I'm not really summarizing it too well here, but I'll link to this review because I really, really enjoyed it this time around as much as ever. And I just really think these are great books for anybody, any age. I've been trying to go through the series, but it is going a bit slower than I expected. The other book I'm reading, so this is kind of for work, but related. This is called Let the Story Do the Work, and subtitle is The Art of Storytelling for Business Success. This is a nonfiction book that is just about how you can use the craft of storytelling to improve your professional life. So whether that's in an interview, writing a resume, pitching a product, or attracting clients, you can use the traditional story arcs and techniques to make yourself more compelling. I was trying to find the neat little charts that she had. So yeah, this author actually advises people in in their business endeavors, and I guess she basically gives them advice on how to use storytelling in their work. So I think this will be interesting on a couple of levels. I haven't read a lot of books on writing or storytelling actually, so this is less familiar territory, I guess, or not a genre I would typically read, but I thought it might be kind of a good one for work, but for personal life too. Paul asks, was Drosselmeyers Dream inspired by Narnia? It was definitely, yes, very Narnia-esque. So when I wrote Drosselmeyers Dream, well, it was inspired primarily by Tchaikovsky's ballet, but I definitely took elements or ideas and impressions I had from The Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia. And I think that when I think of world building, or especially magical world building, I think Narnia is kind of my go-to for that. And I was still pretty, I would say, immature as a writer, so I think that I might have been a little more inspired by it than I would be now. Like, having read more now, I would be taking more from other things I've read, getting a broader perspective, but I don't know. I kind of went for a very simple story, sort of like, well, Narnia has some complexity too, so I wouldn't say I'd call it simple, but just kind of geared more towards kids. So yes, I would say that I probably was inspired by Narnia. Let me go get one of those actually. So I don't know how many people remember this from the previous live stream, but yes, I wrote a book called Drosselmeyers Dream, a Nutcracker retelling, and I haven't really talked about it a lot because I don't want to get too self-promoting on this channel. I kind of want to keep my writing a little bit more separate, but this you can find on Amazon. There's a couple of editions. There's sort of a more budget version that has black and white illustrations, and then this one has color illustrations, and honestly the illustrations are the best part. So yeah, I think that like the whole beginning of this is, I think, very very much inspired by Narnia. So yeah, if you read it, be sure to let me know what you think. Last thing here is Virginia Woolf, The Waves. By the way, anyone who just dropped in, I'm just showing books I'm reading right now. I'll get to the book cleaning very soon. I just wanted to give people a chance to sort of trickle in, and it's kind of a weird time for me to be live streaming, but I'm just gonna go with it today because it's kind of hard to get back into a routine sometimes. This is the Vintage Classics version of The Waves. Now, I've never read any novels by Virginia Woolf before, And I would say this book is not going to be everybody's cup of tea because it's basically a narrative poem. That's how I would describe it. The format is prose, so, there's going to be sentences, and the entire book is told in dialogue between the main characters, or not even between the characters, more like monologues by these characters. And then there's this sort of thematic imagery of waves and a sunrise and a sunset, presumably. I haven't got that far yet, but I'm halfway. I really enjoy the waves. When I first started reading it, I didn't know what was going on, but as I got into it, I just sort of embraced the poetry of it. And it's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. So if you like poetry, you may really like The Waves. If you don't like poetry, you probably won't like this book. It's really hard, actually, to categorize it as whether it's a novel or a poem. There is a plot of sorts, but it's really, I think, more about character development and just people's psychological changes and stuff. So let's see here. Oh yeah. And then I also got to the end of my Commonplace book. I really like these decomposition books, by the way. Not a sponsor, but they're just nice little, well, this size in particular is a nice pocket size, and then it's recycled pages. So yeah, I got to the end, and I've just been sort of writing notes on all of my reading for the past, let's see, since July 2020. So filled up this little book here. I think that this size is actually really good. It doesn't seem like it would be because there's not a ton of writing space, but that's sort of a good thing because then you can just write down the essential thoughts that you have while you're reading, and you don't feel like you're carrying around a huge thing, and it kind of sort of discourages you from using your phone as much. So I have another one here that I'll be using now, and this is one I found at Daiso, which is the Japanese $1.50 store. Is it gonna... I have a thing for penguins, so I'm afraid that I had to get this one. Anyway, this will be my new little Commonplace book. And it's just line pages, but I think it's super, super cute. All right. Let's see. So yes, the new books, the cleaning of the new books. Let me get those out. So we went to the bookstore yesterday, and as luck would have it, there were a lot of good secondhand books, and I had some store credit, so ended up being a really good deal, and I'm afraid I couldn't resist. So I'm going to show these, and I guess I'll clean them. I always like to clean my books if they're secondhand, even firsthand sometimes, just depends what condition it's in. So we'll get out some of these wet ones. Also not a sponsor, but getting me through the pandemic like nothing else. And we'll just wipe these down because we are semi-paranoid about getting COVID. Woo. So yeah, first one here is Tarzan of the Apes. This is a Barnes & Noble Classics edition. I didn't even think this was used when I first saw it, but somebody must have just bought it, literally never touched it, and donated it. So I've never watched Tarzan, so I'm not really sure exactly what to expect. I mean, it's from that late 1800s, Victorian, no, 1914, my bad. Yeah, I don't know exactly what to expect. It could be very similar to Haggard. So I wasn't a huge fan of Haggard, but we'll give it a try. Let's see if we can get the sticker off without a catastrophe. Yay. Okay. Tarzan. Oh, this chair is something else. Table of contents. The World of Edgar Rice Burroughs and Tarzan of the Apes. I usually don't read the introduction because spoilers, but looks like the chapters aren't too long. Oh, Library of America. I love Library of America. Yeah, there's something about these classic adventure novels that are just, in spite of their datedness, in spite of the unlikeliness of the stories, they're just a joy to read. Some more than others, but I think this should be fun anyway. Don't take it too seriously. So the next one is, let's see. Next one, I was also shocked was used because it's like a brand new Signet classic. It's Fathers and Sons, which is a Russian novel I read a few years ago. And I think I mentioned it in the last video, but it's a really good novel, especially if you don't want to get into something extremely heavy and long. But it's a very good story about changing times in Russia and generational differences. And the cool thing is you can kind of see the intersection of some of those things. Like, I think you've got the dandy, who's like the old uncle, kind of the Onegin figure, and then you've got Bazarov, who is, more of a younger progressive, I think. It's been a while since I read this, so I will be reading it again. And maybe I'll do another review. I did write a review at the time, but it was before I was making videos, so. This one has some residue from another sticker, but maybe I won't worry about that too much. And this translation is George Reevy. Didn't read that one. All right. Let's see here. Okay, this is a book I was quite excited to find. This is the autobiography of Mark Twain. This is published by Harper Perennial Modern Classics. And when did he write this anyway? (1917). Mark Twain was a figure larger than life, massive in talent, eruptive in temperament, unpredictable in his actions. He crafted stories of heroism, adventure, tragedy, and comedy that reflected the changing America of the time, and he tells his own story, which includes 16 pages of photos, with the same flair he brought to his fiction. Writing this autobiography on his deathbed, Twain vowed to be free and frank and unembarrassed in the recounting of his life and his experiences. This should be quite interesting. I read Tom Sawyer, and I read A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court and Joan of Arc. But I haven't read Huck Finn or Prince and Pauper. So, I don't know. I've always meant to read more Twain. I just don't know why I haven't ever done so. This one's being a bit stubborn. Okay. Anyway, I know his books have become a bit more controversial recently, but I think that one should form one's own opinions as much as possible. And honestly, it's been so long since I read Tom Sawyer. I barely remember it. So I think it'd be actually a really good time to go back and read more of his novels. Paul says, I read Pudd'nhead Wilson recently. That was a good and funny book. Yeah, they had that one too. It wasn't used though, I don't think. So if it was, I probably would have picked that one up too. Yeah, it's a pretty longish book, but the font's not that small, so I love biographies and memoirs. They're just one of my favorite genres. They just are very, very readable, and they have such a natural beginning and an end, usually. So I think that'll be really good. Okay, so the next one is On War by Karl von Clausewitz. Yeah, I should have looked that one up ahead of time. This is a pretty well-known book by a Prussian officer who fought against the French during the Napoleonic Wars. He sought to understand and analyze the phenomenon of war so that future leaders could conduct and win conflicts more effectively. And I think the reason this has been in my mind is because T.E. Lawrence mentioned it as being a book that he was reading as he was determining what to do during his campaign. So that is an interesting historical crossover, if you will. I think it'd be interesting to see how a book written in the Napoleonic Wars could possibly influence 20th century warfare. It's probably more of a strategic kind of book, so we shall see. But the chapters look pretty readable, honestly. More like small essays. Oh no. Somebody highlighted it. I checked when I bought the book to see if anyone had written any of these or highlighted. I missed this part. However, it doesn't look like it's too... Looks like it's just on a couple pages. Well, that's the risk you take with secondhand books, is sometimes you miss this, but it's alright. It doesn't look like it's throughout the book, so that's good. I really wish people wouldn't purchase a book for one college class, mark it up. Not even the whole book, but just like 2 pages, and then donate it. I mean, probably could have used a large sticky note and gotten the same information, but anyway, it's okay. I probably wouldn't have bought this new, so So we can accept it nonetheless, and probably won't be reading it more than once either. So yeah. But I really like Oxford World Classics, so I think it'll be good to have. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, even though it's your book, like, it's not like you're gonna live forever, so might as well either treat it like a journal and just completely mark it up, like totally, so that it's unrecognizable, or try not to write in it, or maybe use pencil so you can erase it. It must be a morbidity of mine, but I always try to think about, what about the people coming after me? Like, I don't really want to inflict my opinions on them. Okay, so next couple of books here are by Virginia Woolf, who we talked about earlier. Like I said, I'm loving the waves. So I jumped when I saw they had a couple of used copies of Mrs. Dalloway and A Room of One's Own. I have read A Room of One's Own, and I think I mentioned it in the last video maybe. But I really like this book, and I think I will give Mrs. Dalloway a try, because why not? So far, so good. It's kind of difficult to describe, I guess, with her why I like her writing. I mean, one thing I will say is this is an essay, so it's very different from the novel, and you could very well enjoy this and not enjoy the waves, since it's a novel. I mean, since this is an essay. But what I think that indicates is that whatever the format she's writing in, she's very conscious of, and just is very skilled that way. She can switch between different styles and different formats. Whereas some people kind of just write the same in any form. Like, if you read Chesterton, and I love Chesterton, but he writes his novels and his essays pretty much, I would say, the same. He has a very rambling style, lots of wonderful humor, and of course religious undertones throughout. So he's someone who has very, I guess you could say, consistent style. The novel that inspired The Hours. I've heard of The Hours, but I have no idea who wrote it. Marty asks, are there any books you desperately want but are for some reason or another just out of reach? Yeah. Oh, yes. There was one book that got away from me, and the problem is it's kind of a collectible. So the story on that was 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence. It's his memoir of his campaign in the Middle East, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. He keeps coming back. So yes, the library had this vintage hardcover edition of 7 Pillars of Wisdom, and I'm pretty sure it was a first edition, either a first or second, like it was very early. And what happened was I had it on loan for the longest time because I read slow, and ultimately they were like, you either send it back or we're going to have you pay for a replacement. It was so embarrassing. I've never done that before or since. So I thought, okay, I'm going to return it right away. And they were like, that's fine. Come to find out, not long after that, they ended up getting rid of that copy, as far as I could tell. And I wasn't aware of that. I would have gone to the library sale. I would have done whatever it takes to get that book. I mean, seriously, I would have contacted someone and been like, hey, I will pay you for this book, like, because it's kind of collectible and it's one of my favorites. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But library sales really are some of the best places to get books because they're just trying to get rid of them, and you can get some really nice editions that way. The Hours is a movie starring Nicole Kidman. Okay. Well, if I like this, I might check out the movie. I really love costume dramas. Oops. All right, so this is a little book that I didn't even know was a thing, but it's really cool. So I've shown before on this channel the Penguin Great Journeys collection, and they're all this exact size. Sorry, I'm not showing it properly. Kind of a pocket size and just about so thin like that. And yeah, I found some of these of the Great Journeys series at the thrift store and read them, loved them. I still have one left to read, George Orwell, and the Shackleton one too, but that one I've read before. Anyway, a long story short, they take these great works, and sometimes they're just excerpts from great works, and they put them in these little bite-sized pieces. And there was a time I would just never read anything abridged. I was anti-abridged. And I still feel that way in general, because it's like the full story is the full story and anything less is not the full story. But now that I'm older, busier, and with the advent of social media, I do think there is value in having these little bite-sized books, especially if it's a topic you may not be wanting to dedicate an entire year to reading. So I'm really liking these little penguin excerpts. This one is Of Empire by Francis Bacon. Read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. Sorry, lots of ums today. Okay, so this series, Great Ideas, includes The Art of War by Sun Tzu, Plato's Symposium, The City of Ladies by Christine de Pizan. Never heard of that, to be honest. How to Achieve True Greatness by Baldassare Castiglione. This book, The Social Contract by Rousseau. And again, I'm pretty sure these are excerpts, not the whole thing. A Vindication of the Rights of Woman by Mary Wollstonecraft. Fear and Trembling by Søren Kierkegaard. The Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. Where I Lived and What I Lived For by Thoreau. Conspicuous Consumption by Thorstein Veblen. And then Hannah Arendt's Eichmann and the Holocaust. Yeah, to be completely honest, I've not heard of some of these authors before. So anyway, I was very impressed by the Great Journeys books, so hoping this one's just as good. All right, let's see. I think the last one here. This last one isn't actually used, but it was like on 50% off, so I got Watership Down by Richard Adams. Most people I've talked to really enjoy this book. It's one of the favorite books of Adam Young, who is a singer-songwriter that I follow. And this edition is, like a hardcover with color illustrations. So when I saw this, I thought I should probably take this opportunity when it's on sale. Normally goes for $30, but I got it for $15, so I thought probably not going to see that price again anytime soon. It's for those of you who don't know, Watership Down is, from what I've heard, a book that's like a dystopian kind of novel starring rabbits. I don't know how that works, but I'm guessing it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of like Narnia or something, where it's just a sort of fantasy fictional world. Oh, yeah. I suspect, sometimes I see a tag or like a thing on social media where people try to predict like 5-star book reviews. I suspect this will be a 5-star book for me, because I'm kind of a sucker for really good animal stories and dystopia. So So that was my book haul of mostly used books. I don't know when I'm going to read these, but I think that if I really like The Waves, I might try to read Mrs. Dalloway soonish afterwards, so I kind of keep the same authors in the same reading phase. I think it's helpful to read multiple books by an author fairly close together, so you just kind of get a good gist of their work and their style. Although in this case, I've heard that Mrs. Dalloway has a very different style than The Waves, so we shall see how different. But yeah, even just looking through it, it's I can tell that now there's these very, very long paragraphs. But it's not like The Waves. I'll give you an example of The Waves. I see a ring, said Bernard, hanging above me. It quivers and hangs in a loop of light. I see a slab of pale yellow, said Susan, spreading away until it meets a purple stripe. I hear a sound, said Rhoda, cheep chirp, going up and down. I see a globe, said Neville, hanging down in a drop against the enormous flanks of some hill. I see a crimson tassel, said Ginny, twisted with gold threads. I hear something stamping, said Lewis. A great beast's foot is chained. It stamps and stamps and stamps. So if you don't like that kind of writing, then you're not going to like The Waves. And at first I wasn't sure if I did, but it's really grown on me, and I am really, really enjoying this. That's pretty much all the new books I had to show. I think I'll just give a little quick note about channel updates and things. So, some of you know that I recently decided to quit Instagram and kind of go back to more long form content. When I say go back, I mean just sort of focus more on it, because I've realized as much as bookstagram is really great. I mean, there are some really great bookstagrammers that I've followed on there and enjoyed. I just feel like for me as a content creator, it's not quite my thing. I guess I can't write something short. I have to go and write a huge blog post or do like a 30-minute video or something like that. And Instagram doesn't really, I mean, you can obviously do things like that. You can even do videos on there, but I just don't feel like it's that enjoyable for me as a content creator. And it's also like, it's something that I find personally kind of addicting as a content consumer. So I've decided to call it quits for now. I mean, I can always go back in the future if I decide to, but I'm going to try to do more blogging and hopefully more videos. I have a few ideas for videos coming up, including a review/video of Dante's Divine Comedy. Let me show you which one. Ooh. This one I've been sort of procrastinating on for a couple of reasons. Oops. So the first reason, well, just to cut to the chase, when I first read The Divine Comedy a couple of years ago, I didn't really like it. And so it's not something I love reviewing. Like, if I don't like a book that much, it's hard for me to review it, and a lot of people don't even like watching videos like that. But that said, I love this edition. I love the artwork in here. And as I've been thinking about it more, I do appreciate this book very much on certain levels, especially on an aesthetic level. So I plan to do a video on this soonish. I was going to do it this week, but I don't know if it'll be this week. There's a little sneak peek, however. I absolutely love the pictures in this edition. This is the Arcturus Press. Arcturus. I don't know if there's press in the word. Okay, it just says Arcturus. So anyway, yeah, I want to do a really good. I want to do a video on this. I'm not going to be doing a analysis of this. I'm not going to do like historical background or anything like that like I've done for some of my other videos. This is just going to be a layperson's review. You could even call it a first impressions review, because I'm sure I will read this again and perhaps have other thoughts, but yeah, it's a little intimidating, honestly, reviewing books that are so loved by many and so culturally and historically and religiously significant to so many people. So that's another reason I've been procrastinating. CJ says, congrats on 900 subs. Well, thank you to everyone who has subbed, whether it was back at the beginning or recently. I'm just floored, honestly, and I really appreciate it. I really do. I am excited to get to 1,000 subs, not just for the number, which is pretty cool, but it will mean I can have a community tab. And if I have a community tab, that means I can actually do like polls and have like more opportunities to get your feedback. And so that's something I really am looking forward to having access to, because if you don't have 1,000 subs, then you don't have a community tab. That'll just make it so much easier for me to do polls and stuff. So, yeah, it's gonna be really cool. Paul asks, how's the Longfellow translation? The Longfellow translation is not one I'd want to read without the pictures. I'll be completely honest. I was really looking forward to it because I love Longfellow, but I think that it's not the most readable for contemporary people. And I did rely pretty heavily on the little summaries that are in this edition, and I'll show that when I do the video. It's not, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just perhaps not the best for a first reading for someone in the 21st century. And usually I really like those older translations a lot, but I did get honestly confused in places, and I'm really glad this edition had some notes or some context. So awesome. So it looks like a few more people did vote on the poll that I posted earlier, and it looks like I will be reading Common Sense. So that's really exciting. I've never read Common Sense before, believe it or not. And lately I've been more interested in learning about founding documents and stuff. So I think that'll be really fun to do on the channel, and I will be able to just get exposed to that at the same time, which will be fun. And I won't have to do any silly voices or anything. So that'll be nice. But I do want to do the other ones as well. So if you voted for any of the others, that's also great. They were all three that I've been thinking about reading, and I think will make pretty good audiobooks. So those will also stay on the list. I think I'll just do the other one first. I think that's about all I had for this live stream. It was a bit of a shorter one. Any last thoughts, comments, questions? Other videos I have coming up. I'm going to try to do one on Jules Verne soonish. It's not going to be super in depth, but I will talk about the books I've read, translations a little bit, and just experiences reading Jules Verne, because he's one of my favorite authors and somebody that, I don't know, I can go back and read and sort of, it feels like kind of frozen in time, maybe is the word, the phrase to use. I think because his stories are on one level very simple. He doesn't get super complex with his characters. They're all kind of stock figures. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them are stock figures. But the creativity of his stories is amazing, and there is something kind of nice and reassuring about that consistency in his writing that I've always enjoyed. And actually some of his later works get quite complex, so it'll be nice to highlight those in a video of their own, so people will find those, because I think it is also possible to just see one side of Jules Verne. But if you read some of his newer some of his later works, it's almost like reading another author. So and yet it does still have that same scientific themes and futuristic ideas that he has in his earlier books. So yeah, I will enjoy talking about that. Sorry, I'm just not really used to live streaming anymore, so I'm kind of fumbling today. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks everybody who joined in. It was really cool talking to you this evening, and I hope that you all have a great rest of the week. Really happy Easter to everybody, and I will be seeing you all shortly in the next video. So thanks for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.